Listen up. There's no more excuses. We're empowering those who want the hustle by exposing the status quo.
The days of ordinary are over.
It's time to crush mediocrity and start discovering your greatest potential.
Welcome to the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we have Shan Wright in the house. Shan is RN, holistic wellness coach and podcaster. Shan, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. We're going to talk about some topics that I think anybody, like literally anybody, can benefit from. And this is probably the time of year when we should start to look inside at how can we make 2025 the best year ever? And I know that sounds really cliche to think and to say out loud, but when I look at the success of people, for better or worse, a lot of it comes down to your zone of genius, which is things like, how do we avoid burnout? Everyone's been there. How do we focus on time management? And what does it even look like? And then, caring for stress. We all have it, whether we like to admit it or not. So before we get into all that stuff, Shan, tell us a little bit more about you and your business.
Yeah, great. So I am a mom to four. I have almost 12-year-old, almost 10-year-old, 7 and almost 5-year-old. So I'm in that season, and I'm an RN, holistic wellness coach, and podcaster. I'm a year into that and into that part of my business. I was an RN for, at least 10 years active, and then always thought I would bring it back into my life in some space after being a stay-at-home mom for a bit. And I never expected it would be this kind of space, like as a coach and a podcaster, using that expertise and knowledge of being a nurse. But that's where I am, and I'm excited to be here, and for wherever it leads me, I am open for it.
That's amazing. I love that. A lot of passion and a lot of energy for what you do, and that's typically a sign of someone who's not only really good at their job, but loves what they do. So Shan, when you messaged me, one of the things you talked about is burnout. And I want to start there because I've been there many times, or on the verge of it many times. I've seen a lot of other folks who have been there, whether they want to admit it or not, they're there because you can see it. You can sometimes hear it in their voice. And I don't want anyone to be in that situation. I know you don't either. But what does that look like? Why do people get there?
Yeah, well, I think one thing is a lot of people have been there and they never called it that. They never knew they were there. I probably did not define myself in a state of burnout, except in hindsight. I'm like, wow, I was burnt out. And for me, and I think this is true for a great deal of people, we are striving and performing and maybe even a perfectionist, which is where I was. And that anxiety and stress leads us to trying to do way too many things all at the same time. And so that was all my childhood, high school, college, as a young nurse. And then I found myself with 3 kids at the time, a newborn, 2 toddlers, and trying to have the perfect home, perfect business. I had a small business at the time as well, a different one. Perfectly behaved kids, perfectly dressed kids, perfect dinners, perfect marriage, and all these things. And I was actually driving to a postpartum appointment, and I was listening to an episode on a podcast, and the girl was describing her postpartum anxiety. And I started to cry, and I was like, I think that's me. And I realized at that time that I had anxiety, which was riddled through my entire life. And it was showing up in postpartum pretty extreme at that point. And I started to turn the corner, and I was like, well, how do I take care of myself? And I went on this holistic wellness journey. And so I started that at that point, which was 7 years ago, started really caring for myself holistically. And like, we can get into what that means, but I want to say how, yes, we all have stress. And I believe stress is on a a continuum. It's called the Yerkes-Dodson law. And there's two psychologists, and they put this stress continuum. And it's when you have no stress, you are laying in bed, you are completely like blind to life. You don't even have a care in the world. You're not even here. And then you go up the curve, and at the top is actually optimum stress. This is crossing the finish line. This is in a game, in a race. This is your best project. You're really excelling at work. This is good. We need this stress in our life. But if we stay there too long, if that marathon goes on forever, then we very quickly go down the hill and end up in anxiety, anger, exhaustion, and burnout. Burnout is at the bottom. And it's very hard to climb a mountain uphill, right? It's very hard to go back up to optimum stress. We actually have to get a lot of help. We have to get a lot of holistic help in order to get out of that burnout zone. And so I help people do that. I help people with practical, simple solutions to get rid, so they don't actually go down the hill at all. So they stop at that, like right before the optimum stress, and they don't hang out there too long. They get there, and then they learn how to manage their stress. I like to help moms in that area, because when you get down the hill, it's really hard to again get out of it. But as you were asking, how do we avoid this burnout, is we have to have a lot of different tools and strategies and trigger and know how to combat our triggers, because it's coming at us in all different directions. It's not that we're all running a race. We're actually just doing a lot of life. And so the triggers are coming all the time. And you have to know personally, what are your triggers? What is stressing you out? What is providing that angst inside? What is giving you, when you screamed at your kids, what actually was the reason? Was it because you had a bad meeting at work? Was it because you lost a few customers and a few clients? Like, why did you yell? It wasn't the stress of the kids isn't the problem. There's something underneath of that. And so it really is getting down to what are your stressors and how you can manage them so you don't get down the hill into burnout.
That's a good answer. That's really good. One of the things that I've always tried to do, and this has just been my perspective, is I'm quick to jump to the root cause, which is not always the best answer. But when I do that, a lot of people who get to this stage, it appears to me that they are too focused on the word perfect. And you mentioned that. I heard you say the word perfect several times. And I want to tell a quick story because I think it's important, but this became part of the framework for a lot of what I do today in both of my books. But when I interviewed for a job with Quicken Loans many years ago, they had these Quicken Loan isms. And it's basically a big part of their culture. And one of them was good is good enough. And the person I was interviewing was a friend, or helped me get the interview, as a friend. And she said, you need to read these. These are very important. And as I read through them, I don't know why, but I still remember it to this day. And I had to ask clarity. And I said, why? Why is this an ism? And they said, well, basically, we don't believe in perfect. We don't even want you to be perfect because we know it's not attainable. It's not realistic. But also, more importantly, anybody who tries to do that, like performance report, a slide deck, they end up spending 4 hours more on something when they could have spent that 4 hours on something else. So let's just say you do that once a month. What's 12 times 4? Like, that is an absolute waste of time and money in some cases. And so we just want you to do the best you can. And then don't fret on taking 2 or 3 or 4 more hours to make something better. And I thought, wow, that's a culture that I have not been around. And I'm like, I want to be a part of that. And so as I learned myself, especially with sports, I said, you know what? Why am I trying to be perfect? I just need to be 1% better. If I can get 1% better every day, then I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to be the best that I can. And so what are your thoughts on that when you're working with people and they're like, I just got to be perfect, or my house has to be perfect? How do you get around that?
Yeah, I definitely struggled with perfectionism, and it came from a lot of different reasons. I think it was spoken over me as a kid. And I thought, well, that's a good thing. It's a good thing to always be striving for the best and the best you can be. So I feel like it gets confusing and there's a gray line there because you want to strive for excellence. I think excellence is something that we all want in our work, in our passions, in our life. We want to live an excellent life. But when we are striving too hard and aiming for perfectionism, that is where pride comes in. And, pride comes before the fall. So you're going to fall in some area if you are so prideful of this work that you're doing, this excellent work. Well, are you doing it out of humility? Humility is an amazing. I love that Quicken Loans had that as one of their isms. The company I work for or am partnered with, one of theirs is humility. Like that is a core value of the company is humility because you can't get anywhere. You can't get to the top if you actually don't humble yourself. And perfectionism is actually just a cover for pride. It's a cover for not humbling yourself and saying, I can do this all on my own and I can do it better than everyone else. I can actually do it perfectly. And again, this led me to great places in life. I got straight A's. I was a good student. I was a good athlete. I was a good friend. I was the good girl in my family. Like I was one of 5 and I was the one that didn't ruffle any feathers, didn't upset my parents. I didn't get the spankings. Like I was good. I got into a good college and it wasn't until until I said I had that breakdown moment did I realize this perfectionism was not serving me and it actually was this pride was making me fall in a lot of areas of my life. And I think when we can be humble and say, you know what? I don't have to be the best and I'm not the best. And I want to seek help in some area. Even if it's something you're good at, if you put 2 minds together, they're better than one. So if you just really humble yourself, then you can realize perfectionism doesn't serve anyone. We are good and we're better at things when we do it with others and we humble ourselves, we ask for help and we say, hey, let's do this together. Let's collaborate. Let's put our brains together. Let's help each other get to the top. Then everything's going to work better.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of really good points there. One thing that I think about with people who struggle with perfectionism, and I've been there before. Granted, I've never been close to perfect. And I don't know why I ever wanted perfectionism with the things that I was passionate about. But I hearken back to those times. And I also talk to some folks who struggle with that. And it seems to me if you really peel back the layers of the onion, many, not all, but many of them, there's a layer of insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Because getting praise for something that is so perfect and so beautiful helps them feel better about themselves. And I don't say that to judge. I say that because I feel like I've been there many times. And when you can get over that and say, you know what, like I'm just going to do my best. I'm not going to worry about what people think because it is not perfect. I don't want to be perfect. I just need to be the best version that I can be and continue to improve because then I can be proud of myself.
Yeah, so I was just talking about this the other day with a friend. She's actually another podcaster, an amazing coach and human. And we were talking about this and how we have, I don't know if you know or your listeners know of the love languages and the 5 love languages.
I don't.
But you
I've heard
don't.
of them.
One is words of affirmation. And I read this book. It's kind of like a marriage book. They have love languages for kids as well. But I read the marriage one, my first year of marriage, and it was like, oh my gosh, I'm words of affirmation. That's what I am. I need you to tell me things and not just, I love you. That does nothing. I need you to like be very specific. What did I do good here? And was that the best meal you ever had in your life? And I need you to lift me up. And I realized that and man, I did not realize that soon enough. It took me years to realize I was looking for him to cover up my insecurities that I had. And I was doing it with all this praise. And I was like, I'm not feeling enough love. But really, it was, I'm not loving myself enough. I don't love these things about me. And I'm relying on my husband to give me this praise so that I can feel better about my insecurities. So I had to work on myself. Again, it's a whole holistic wellness journey that, it's your whole life, right? And you're always on this journey, and we just get better each day. And it was not long ago that I realized I need to work on my own insecurities, and I need to realize I am good enough. I am a good enough mom. I am a good enough wife. I don't have to be perfect. And these insecurities are just part of me. They aren't bad. These things aren't bad. They are just part of who I am. I was made actually as a masterpiece. I was made with a purpose for a purpose. And so these insecurities are just a figment of my imagination. And I need to get over them and realize what my purpose is and focus on that.
What's up, listeners? I just wanted to say thank you for being a part of the Hustle Nation community. We are absolutely thrilled and honored that you listen to our show. I wanted to take a break to share a special resource with you. I'm talking about our 2020 Vision Guide. This is a pivotal tool we use in our workshops where participants typically invest thousands of dollars for transformative experiences. Imagine having a crystal clear, actionable roadmap to not just meet but exceed your personal and professional goals. That's the power of the 2020 Vision Guide. And here's the best part. We're offering it to you for free. This is your chance to leverage a tool that has propelled hundreds of people achieve unparalleled success. Visit our website now. I'm including the URL in the show notes below, where you can download our guide and start your journey toward clarity and achievement. Don't wait. It's time to create the life you deserve today. Now back to the show. I think you hit the nail on the head there. That makes a lot of sense for me in my marriage. I'm going to have to check out this love languages book.
Yeah.
But Shan, you talk a lot about these holistic journeys. And I think there's a lot of men that listen to this show that think of that and they're like, yeah, that's not for me. That's for women. So when you talk about this holistic care, why is it so important? Why should especially men listen? I'm bought in, but I'm asking for the audience.
Yeah. And actually, I want to share a story of my husband to answer this question. So this was just this summer, pretty recent. And like I said before, I'm not sure if I did, but he struggles with anxiety, and he gets over that stress hump a lot and is in that anxiety, anger, exhaustion spot a lot. And he is working on his triggers, and we're working on it together because I can easily see sometimes I'm like, okay, this messy house is a trigger for you and it's causing more stress in your life. So we're working on it together, but it was this summer, and the summer, all the kids are home, and it should be a relaxing time, a lot of fun, a lot of going to the pool and hanging out and family vacations and all these things. And so we were having a great summer. I'm trying to manage my job, and, which being a stay-at-home mom and only working a couple hours a day is, I thought, like, just for me to do. And he didn't have to worry about that. But he was taking on the stress of everything. And we were about to go on a 2-week vacation. We were going to the lake together, all as a family. And then I was taking the kids camping, and he was coming home for a quick minute and then going on a work trip. So we weren't going to see each other for 2 weeks. And one of those weeks we're going to be together. Right before we left, he's like, my arm is numb. And immediately he goes to heart, and he's thinking, it's going to my chest. It's radiating. Something's wrong with me. Well, it was just the next day that he's like, okay, now my other arm is numb. And now my leg is numb. And now my other leg is numb. Like all his limbs started going numb.
Wow.
And it would happen when he's working at the computer. So, and doing things for work, answering emails, all of that. So then he immediately thinks carpal tunnel. So he's telling his mom, who's a physical therapist, about all the symptoms. And she's like, okay, let me get you in touch with my coworker who works particularly on necks and backs. It sounds like you have a pinched nerve. And they're going down all these routes of trying to find out why his limbs are numb. And he tells me, which I'm living with him, so I know what he's like 24/7. And I'm like, honestly, I think this is stress. And he was like, well, why, all the excuses like, why would this happen when I'm answering emails? And why does it act up at this time and this time, So we go on our vacation. We finally made it there. I did a lot of massaging while he was driving and ice packs and all the things. We get to the lake and his mom was like, she's like I said, a physical therapist. So she's working on his body. And I'm trying to tell him, I think this is anxiety. I think you're having an anxiety attack. And it's not like one where you're panicking and you have to rush to the hospital, but I think this is an attack on your nervous system. And he was like, okay, well, what do I do about that? And I'm like, you have to get rid of your stress. Like, there's a lot of things happening here. We have to get to the root of it. Why are you so stressed out? Why are you so anxious? We have to find out what it really is. And I have some thoughts because, again, I know him. So, like, I know some things that happened in his life and in his childhood and his young adult years that he's never dealt with. And my belief is that it's coming up, and it's coming up in different scenarios. And I'm seeing the attacks come on that really correlate to those traumas that he's had. So anyway, we get home from the lake. It gets a little worse, and then we finally see each other again after 2 weeks. And that week he decided, he's like, I'm going to do both things. I'm going to do the medical route. I'm going to go to my doctor, see if he knows why, I'm having this numbness in my hands and my feet, and I'll do what you say too. And I told him to go see a chiropractor. So he's like, I'll do both things. So he went to the doctor. The doctor was like, I had no idea. You're going to have to see a neurologist, which, good luck getting an appointment. So I told him, well, a neurologist is going to do physical therapy. They're going to do surgery or medication. Those are their modalities. If you go to a chiropractor, they're going to treat your whole body. And so he went to the chiropractor. I went with him. He was like, oh my gosh, you love this stuff. Cause I was just like, this is true. This is right. This is real. So anyway, he started seeing a chiropractor for his nervous system. He did not ever see a neurologist. He started working out. He joined my gym. He started working out 4 or 5 days a week. He started praying. He started working on his mental health, reading. He started waking up at an earlier time, which meant he was going to bed at a better time, getting more sleep. He started doing a lot of different things. And then slowly but very surely, it went away. And he started getting feeling back. And people would ask him, what made the difference? And he was like, all of it. All of it made the difference. I can't say one thing made it stop, but I actually took care of my whole body. I didn't just say, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go run 5 miles. I think that'll take care of it. I think a lot of people go on these stress relieving trips. Like they're like, I'm going to go for a run because we know running is a stress reliever. I'm going to go get a massage because we know that's a stress reliever. Yeah, you can't just take care of your physical wellness and say, my stress is gone. You have to take care of your holistic wellness. That means social, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, financial, occupational, and environmental. This is what I believe. I believe in 8 areas that we have to get in tune with even a little bit to really care for our holistic body.
That's a wonderful story. I appreciate you sharing that. You just said something that to me, just from my lens, might be the most important thing take away from the show, especially, if you're like me. You said that it's not one thing, it's everything. And so I'm going to translate this back to marketing because that's what I do. Is when I've been in marketing a long time, and people always say like, oh, well, what's the trending thing? Or what's the thing I should do now? Or, where should I focus? What's the magic trick? What's the silver bullet? And I just shake my head. I'm like, you know what? If that's how you look at it, it's never going to work for you.
Mhm.
And I hate to sound like a jerk, but I think it's true. Is I tell people, this is my example, Shan, so bear with me because it's something I wrote in my book. But I always say, like, success in marketing and business is like a pot of chili. You can Google it. You can look on Pinterest. There's a million recipes.
Yeah.
None of them are right. None of them are wrong. It's based on maybe where you come from. What do you have in the proverbial pantry? Who are you cooking for? What kind of time do you have? You create the recipe based on a lot of those things. And then if you use all the ingredients, it turns out amazing, just as you anticipated. If you omit a couple of ingredients, still edible, still fine, That's how most people get through life. They just kind of, oh, I got this, I got that. Just throw it in a pot and see what happens. You'll get by. You'll survive. But if you really want to get the outcome that you're looking for, it's all the ingredients. It's every one of them. And it's like a bicycle spoke. You can take one out, but then you start to lose the balance and the integrity of the bicycle wheel. Eventually it's going to bend and you're not going to have a bicycle that works. And so I always tell people it's all of it. It's actually not all of it. It is the thing that's important. So if you prioritize all of it, you're going to have a really awesome outcome in life and business and leadership and marketing and health, more importantly. So when you talk about the holistic, it starts to make more sense now. I was kind of like rolled my eyes when I hear about holistic care, but the older I get, the more I realize it's like, yeah, taking time for me to read is part of my holistic health, actually, because it fills my cup mentally. And taking time for me to play golf and get a massage and go to the chiropractor and work out, taking time for myself, it's all of those things that make me who I am. I still have back pain, even though I've never eaten better than I have before. But at the end of the day, I'm in a much better position because I do all those things. Again, not going to make me perfect, but boy, if more people could hear that message, I think we would all be better for it.
Yeah, it's definitely the long game too. So it's even a chili, it needs to simmer for a while. So it's definitely a long game. It's not like a lot of people do. They come across something that my husband was in, and they're like, well, I'm going for the surgery. Like maybe the appointment's going to be a couple months out, but once I get it, I'm going to get that surgery and we'll be good. But that would not solve the root of the problem. The root cause was his whole nervous system was in overdrive, and it had been that way too long. He was in burnout. So we talked about burnout. He was in burnout, and that's what it looks like. It looks like you have no more control of your body. You have no more control of your mental wellness. You have intrusive negative thoughts all the time. You're always feeling on edge. You're angry. You're snapping at everyone. Like that's burnout. And we try to say, oh, I just need some quiet time, or I just need to go for a run, or I just need, a massage. And it's like, yeah, those things will help, but it's the long game. You need to do all of it. And it's not going to be the miracle pill that snaps it back into action in just one day. It's going to take time. And so, like I said, he started to get his life back, but it was like months. It was months. And but it was worth it because now he's holistically better instead of just having his physical wellness being better. So I like that chili analogy. That's pretty fun.
Thanks. I would love to talk more about this, but for sake of time, we have to transition to a new subject that I think is equally as valuable for a lot of the listeners out there.
Yeah.
But you have something called the ABCs of time management. And why I want to go there is because I've become way better at my calendar management, but I still think that there's probably multiple levels to get to. And part of it is, I think, why a lot of people struggle is because they haven't put a dollar value on their time. They don't, and even if they haven't, they still don't value their time like they should. And so spend time getting caught with distractions because, again, they're not a master of their calendar. So let's dive into the ABCs of time management.
Yeah, sure. So, well, in nursing, the ABCs of revival, it's airway, breathing, circulation. So you need an airway in order to breathe. And then you pay attention to the circulation. And so this is like CPR basics, right? So I took that and I'm like, we need life back to our life. We need to actually live this one life that we have instead of running it and being in survival mode. That's not a way to live. And so let's take the ABCs. So A stands for air. And that means air that you need in life. We need breath for air. We need breath for life. And those are the things that give you life. They are your purpose, your passion, your calling. They are going to be non-negotiables on your schedule. So back up a second. First, you're going to pour everything out. I call it a brain dump. People call it some different things, but you're just going to dump everything you have to do, everything you want to do, everything your kids have to do, thoughts, feelings. You can go, to the very minuscule detail, whatever you want, but get it all out. Then you look at that and you say, okay, what is actually necessary? What gives me life? What is air? What is a non-negotiable for me in this season right now in my life? And you're going to put that on your calendar and you're going to find the time for that first. It's going to be blocked off. I like to work in time blocks. And so I'm like, this is a time block that nothing gets interrupted in this time because it's my life. It's my air that I need. B is borders. Now, borders means that they can be delegated. These are things that you can pass off. It's the kids' activities. Maybe it's just practice, not a game. You don't have to be there. So hey, the husband can take, or even a carpool neighbor, we can trade rides. It can be like getting groceries. You can decide, okay, we need groceries, but we can do pickup instead of going and shopping the aisles. There's different things that you can do. You need some of these things, but they can be delegated. They can be moved around on the schedule. They can be orchestrated to where they're not taking up as much time. They can also be bunched together. So you're like, I'm going this part of town. I'm going to do both of these things at the same time on this day at this, so you can work around them. They get done, but it's very strategic how they get done. And then C is create. And this is the things that you want to do. You have these dreams and you need to create the time in order to make them happen. You want to read, you need to be you want to be a leader. So that means you need to read. So where can we create the time to read? And you find it on your schedule and then you block it off. Now, you're not going to find 5 hours probably on your schedule to read because it's a C. So it's not as priority, but you're going to create the time. You're going to move some things. You're going to set a timer for 15 minutes to get it done. And you're going to get it done in small chunks. Or maybe it's dreaming up this big project you have for the end of the year. Put a little bit of time, 15, 20 minutes on your calendar for that create space. It's these things these goals and dreams that we have, but we don't spend the time really dreaming them up. We don't spend the time really thinking and planning about them. So then it's like another year has gone by and I haven't done that thing that I really want to create. So it's putting those little blocks of time somewhere in your calendar for those things.
Wow. Well, so if people hear this and they see this, a lot of people know they need to eat the frog, they need to do all these things, but people still continue to not do it. Why is it that people I know I have this problem, which is, I'm going to guess 75% of the population, but they just don't take the steps to follow through? Is there a psychological block? If so, what is it?
Well, I think it's two things. We hear consistency is the secret to success, and it's the key to
Believe that.
success. But I believe accountability is the secret code. I believe if you do not have accountability to stay consistent, we stop. It didn't happen fast enough. It didn't get done fast enough. It wasn't that miracle I was hoping for. That pill didn't work as fast as it was supposed to. It wasn't microwavable. So we stop because we just didn't get there at the time in the space that we thought we would. And we give up and we say, well, it wasn't for me. It didn't work for me. Chris said this marketing tool was really going to help me, but not for me, because we just give up. We just don't do it long enough. And the reason we don't do it long enough is because we don't have someone or something holding us accountable. I think you can find accountability in a lot of different ways. You have to find what works for you. I do love accountability. It's a big part of my coaching. And so I like to say that I'm not just a coach, but I'm an accountability coach, because coaches are an amazing accountability. You can get a business coach and a life coach. You can get a spiritual coach. You can get a coach for your nutrition. You can get a coach for anything. But some of them will just tell you what to do. And some of them really hold your hand through it and really say, I'm going to touch in with you tomorrow at this time. And you're going to tell me that you did what we talked about. You're going to do your homework. And so there's different kinds of coaches. And I think a coach is a great accountability. You can do an accountability partner, and you can say, you can use your spouse. You say, hey, let's go on this meal plan together and hold each other accountable to it. You can have a business partner that's an accountability, and you guys have specific goals, you talk about them, you say, we're going to have this timeline and we're going to stay consistent and get these tasks done to get to that goal together. We're going to hold each other to it. And so it's really saying, what is your accountability? And then using that accountability. So sometimes it's finances. Sometimes just making that financial investment is enough accountability for you, but not everyone. People just this month just bought a lot of gym memberships. Do you think anyone's going to, that for somebody, that's a lot of money that they will not waste. But other people, they're like, whatever. And they'll let that subscription go, and they'll still paying monthly and then not make it to the gym one time. So you have to find what works for you. For me, financial investment is a great accountability. I know how much I've spent, and so I will do the thing to get that result. But, you have to find what works for you. And I think consistency paired with accountability is the way that you make those dreams happen.
They're almost kind of the same word in some ways. I mean, I've always said this, like, if you're strategic and consistent, you're going to be successful in sales and marketing, most definitely. But you're probably consistent because you're being held accountable.
Mhm.
And I feel like now I need to add that into my saying, because there's
Mhm.
it's just, that was kind of mind blowing in some ways. But that might be the thing that a lot of people are missing, is they know they need to be consistent, but accountability is almost like you have the strategy, and that is the implementation of the strategy. Because I can give you the plan, just like
Mhm.
you can give your clients the plan, but if they don't implement, which is being accountable and being consistent, it doesn't matter if they have the plan to make $1 million at the end of the
Yeah.
year. They don't follow through with accountability and consistency, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I like to say as a coach that your intentions are a hill of beans, because, I mean, I didn't make that quote up, someone else did, but it's like we have such good intentions, especially in my space, all busy moms that want to live well. We want to raise good kids. We want to have healthy homes. We have such good intentions, but we get too stressed out. And then we can't follow through with our intentions, and no one's holding us accountable to it. And no one's saying, do this, do that. Even if they are, we get overwhelmed by that. We're like, okay, that's way too much. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And so I think you're right. They go together. And I just think that's the missing piece a lot of times, is the secret code that a lot of people don't know to actually follow through with these intentions that they have.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, Shan, we could talk about this all day, I think, literally. There's a lot of different topics I'd love to go in, but it just means we'll have to do this again.
Yeah,
But before I let
absolutely.
you go, what are some final thoughts on all these topics? So, obviously, it's the start of the new year. People are listening, trying to make the best of themselves and crush this year. Any final thoughts? Walk away tips.
Yeah, I mean, I would say really what we just said is like my bread and butter is you have to find what is going to help you stay accountable. So you might have made some big goals and resolutions at the start of the year. Um, we know that resolutions don't work, and we know that we only meet our goals if we have someone checking in with us about them and asking us about them. I actually have my goals written behind me on my chalkboard. So whenever I am in my office, I see them. So I think one thing is, writing them down, tracking. I'm big on trackers as well. I have a daily wellness tracker that is super simple, but it's writing it down and seeing it. I really, really stress printing it out and having it on the counter, having it where you're going to be several times a day, so that you can see it and you can check it off. Like, even if it's just water, even if your main goal is just to drink more water, well, put it on the tracker and write it down. So, and that's holding you accountable. That tracker is accountability. But we don't let things hold us accountable. We say, I got this. You have these intentions, and you're like, these intentions are strong enough. I got this. I know, someone else did this, and so I'm going to follow their path. And we get influenced by a lot of things, products and people online, and then we just say, I'm going to do what they did. But you're not doing the actual you're seeing the end from them. You don't know what they did actually, every step they took. So take the steps, write it down, write down your goals, write down the way you're going to track them, and let it hold you accountable. And then before you know it, you're going to need a new goal to then do that again, because you're going to hit them if you have them down in small, achievable action steps that actually help you reach your goal. You're going to hit all your goals and you're going to have a great year. So write down the goals, track them, and you'll get there.
You know, the funniest thing about some of this stuff, Shan, is that some of the most elementary tips that are given are the most effective and powerful ones.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like anyone could be doing that. Everyone should be doing that in theory, but so many
Yeah.
people don't. So take the extra moment, folks, and just write down your vision, write down your goals, keep them in front of you. It's been a game changer for me too. To hear you say that is just an affirmation that, you know, maybe I'm doing some of the right things, but we can always improve. We can always get better. And hopefully that's what it's about for you. But Shan, before I let you go, where can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a podcast called Holistic Moms, everywhere you stream podcasts. And I mostly hang out there, but you can also get in touch with my freebies and my resources at theshanwright.com. And I actually do have an amazing resource right now that I just created something. So in that little create space that I found on my calendar over Christmas break, I created, might sound to your male audience, it might sound a little foreign, but to your female audience, whether, if you're female at all, you might tune into this. It's a scripture meditation coloring book. So it takes meditation and coloring, which are both amazing stress relieving activities, and it puts them together. And I created this coloring book called Peaceful Pages, and it's a freebie. So you can grab this free, print it out, and find some ways to another tool, because we need a lot of different tools to relieve our stress, but this is one tool that you can use and it's free. And that's at theshanwright.com/coloring.
I believe that because my wife has some adult coloring books.
Yes.
And my daughters will occasionally participate with them. And of course, I've done it a few times. And I was like, you know what? It's actually kind of relaxing. It's kind of peaceful. So I get it. I totally resonate. But that's
Yeah,
because
good.
my life is ruled by women, and I'm okay with that. But Shan, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate your time. To all the listeners, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Thank you for being part of the Hustle Nation. If you're serious about raising the bar in your personal and professional life and willing to go all in on your success, head over to hustleleaders.com. Here you can get access to our Hustle Productivity ebook, attend our Hustle Masterclass, or challenge yourself to the 30-day Hustle Challenge. Pairing these tools and training with the Hustle Nation podcast will help you advance to a whole new level. Until next time, stay hungry and inspire those around you to hustle.